Hey friends, it's Martin and Tucker. We're in the studio today. We're making a delicious sourdough croissant bread. It has all the characteristics of a great croissant plus sourdough, but it's hearth baked in an artisan loaf. Come along for the video. I got a little bowl. I've got some water, about 90 grams of water, and I'm making a liquid levain. Remember that a liquid levain is equal parts flour and water by weight. It's sort of the most common I would say sourdough consistency that people are using these days. It's mostly liquid levain. So I got 90 grams of water in there, and I've got about 21 grams of sourdough culture, and that's just enough to sort of initiate this fermentation process. And then I've got another 90 grams of flour. We'll mix this together, and then we'll let it sit overnight, basically. Put it in a nice, comfortable spot. And then when we come back and we're ready to bake, we'll talk about, what are the characteristics of a nice, ripe sourdough. So just stir that to combine. Set that aside, get a cover on it. Love my little snappy bowl cover. Put that in a comfortable spot. So let's do the mix for this croissant sourdough bread. This is a recipe that I wrote in the spring of this year, and I went into it just with a little bit of a question mark in my head, like, am I gonna be really excited about this once I eat it? And the truth is that I really liked it. I thought the flavor was like far better than I expected. Maybe I talk about my setup for just a second, because that's important. It's important to sort of get your tools and materials and ingredients, your active sourdough starter, in place before you sort of jump to the mix. In my case today, I've got my recipe printed right here. Remember that if you're looking for the recipe, we always include it in the sort of line down there right below the video. You'll see this link that you can click on. It'll take you to the website and you can read through it. You can print it out as I have. It's super helpful to work off a printed copy. I recommend that versus working off the screen. And the reason for that is that as I proceed through the recipe, I can add tick marks, sort of checking off the elements. Did I put the flour in? Did I put the correct water in? Did I put the salt and the sugar and the egg yolk, in this case, into the bowl? Checking those things off is how we work in professional bakeries, and it's how you should work at home too, because it will make you more accurate. The more accurate you are, the more beautiful and flavorful your bread will be. So print your recipe and work down the list as you add things in, okay? So here's the active sourdough culture that I mixed yesterday. It's bubbly. It's got a lot of pinprick bubbles in the sort of running throughout the medium. It looks very healthy. It looks like it's ready to rock and roll. So I'll get this into the bowl. This particular leaven right now is at that stage where I can tell that if I added it to water, it would float really nicely. It just looks super happy and healthy. Okay, next into the bowl, I've got some lukewarm water here. I didn't measure this. I just sort of grabbed some straight out of the tap. So I've got my starter in the bowl on the scale, and I'm just gonna add my water directly on top of that. 240 grams. This is a dough that would fall into the category of like what I would call high hydration, right? It's pretty sticky. But I'm gonna show you some methods for working with that will make it a little bit easier. If you're feeling some trepidation, what I would say is that you could hold a little bit of water too, right? The amount that I say for this is 240 grams. If you're sort of new to the gig and you're thinking, I'm a little bit concerned about how sticky this dough is gonna be, maybe you try it with like 210 or 215, somewhere in there. It's okay to reduce that water a little bit. You might not have the same sort of open structure, but you will have a loaf that is every bit as delicious. In my case, I've gone with the full amount, which is 240 grams. And then I'm gonna add an egg yolk. I added the egg yolk to this recipe just sort of in a nod to the croissant, right? Croissants often have some eggs in them, and I'm just using the yolk because I really just want that yellow color in the dough, and I also want some of the enrichment as well. So I'm just gonna give that a quick stir to combine. I've got a little bit of salt, straight in, and I've got a little bit of sugar as well. Sugar just to give a little bit of browning, and also, again, it's this idea that it's a sourdough croissant bread, right? Croissants have sugar, croissants have eggs, and I'm getting those elements into the dough just as sort of a nod to the inspiration for the recipe. And then I'm gonna go in with my bread flour right on top, and I need 3 cups or 360 grams of bread flour. Set that aside. Done with the scale. And I'm back to the old handle end of my wooden spoon. You all have seen me do this 1,000 times. And I'm just stirring to combine. Just bringing it together. You're not gonna see me try and mix this with my hands or knead it or anything like that, right? One of the hallmarks of working with a sticky dough is that generally I try not to touch it until the folding stage, right? I want that flour to go to work, build some strength before I try and get my hand in there and get myself real messy. Flexible scraper to clean this bowl up. Okay, so I got a 2-quart container here, a little splash of oil. Put this into a warm spot. We're gonna let it sit for 20 minutes. We're gonna come back and do a bowl fold. We'll see you in just a second. Okay, so 20 minutes, we're back for the first fold. And as always, you know, there's some flexibility here. Don't set a stopwatch and then feel like you're late if it's gone off for a couple seconds and you haven't begun the folding process, right? Be flexible, stay loose, stay adaptable. So wet hand, get some of that magic water. I'm gonna go in, grab a section of the dough. I'm gonna stretch up and press to the middle, just working my way around the mass of dough, stretching and pressing 8 or 12 times until it really doesn't feel like it will stretch much more. And then usually I'll kind of give a little bit of a rounding to it and place it seam side down back in the container. We're gonna come back in 20 minutes and we're gonna laminate in the butter. This is our sourdough croissant bread. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes, could be 30 minutes. Honestly, it's probably been 30 minutes here. This dough is ready for its sort of second touch. We did our bowl fold, we let it rest for a little while, and now we're gonna get our butter in. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna get this surface wet because I'm gonna do what we call a lamination fold. It's not a lamination as you might expect when you're making croissants or puff pastry or things like that. It's a lamination fold because I'm gonna sort of stretch it out thinly and then I'm gonna do a letter and roll it up, okay? And in that process, or along the way, I'm gonna add the butter into this dough. So on a moist surface, I put my dough down. I've got it wet so that it doesn't basically stick or stick too badly. And I'm gonna stretch it to a little over a foot, about 14 inches or so, somewhere in there. I'm not even gonna measure this with a ruler. You could, you definitely could, nothing wrong with that. And I've got 1 stick of butter. I wrote the recipe so that it just uses an even stick. I think that kind of makes it easier. I've got my cold butter. I'm gonna grate it right over the dough. So at this initial point, I'm gonna grate about 2/3 of the butter, and then I'm gonna, after I fold it, I'll add the last third. So 2/3 of the butter grated over the surface of the dough, and then I'm gonna do my fold, and this is just gonna be me folding it up. So from left to right or right to left, whatever you wanna do. I'm just basically doing a letter fold here. And what this is doing is it's creating these pockets, right? So it's dough, butter, dough throughout the mass. I'm creating layers as I would in a croissant or in puff pastry or something else, but this is sort of like the down and dirty jiffy method for that. So I've got one more piece of the butter here, about 1/3 left, and I'm just gonna grate that over the top, and then I'm gonna roll the dough up. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna create all of these pockets within the dough, which during baking will sort of open up. I don't know if it really matters if you use like the large setting or the small setting. I've only been using the large setting. I haven't tested the smaller one, but I'm sure it'd work. And then starting at the end away from me, I'm just gonna roll it up. I'm stretching a little bit, adding just a little bit of tension, probably not all that necessary, but stretching and just rolling it down. And that's it. You can see I've got this nice mass of dough with the butter inside. And then I'll go back into my 2-quart container and I'll be back shortly to give it a coil fold. Okay, so wet hands, I'm gonna do a coil fold. I go in and I sort of grab the dough by its belly a little bit and I lift it up. And you can see it's gonna stretch just a little bit, not a lot. And I'll put it back down in. And then I can turn the dough maybe 90 degrees and I can do it again. So I'll go in, I'll see if I can get it to stretch. Sometimes I might even hold it by one end. I'm basically just trying to give it a little bit of strength, and that's it. The dough at this phase isn't that relaxed, so it's not gonna stretch that much. But in that process, I am organizing it a little bit, and I'm adding a little bit of strength. We're gonna give it another pause. We'll come back and do one more coil fold before it gets a nice long rest. Going back in, wet hands, I'm gonna go to the sort of midline of the dough, or what I sometimes call like the waist or the belly of the dough. I'm gonna reach underneath, stretch up, and just let it fold over onto itself. This is a little bit of a strengthening action, but it's also just me sort of checking in and saying, how does the dough feel? Is it active? Do I need to do anything? Do I need to move it to a warmer spot? So not only is it strengthening, but it's also a little check-in. Oh, it feels super nice. It's not like aerated yet, but it does feel lighter. So let's think about this for 1 second. You know, when you're adding that cold butter, you're slowing the dough down quite a bit. And so that's why after we do this fold, in the recipe it says wait 2 to 4 hours before you shape. That's important because you want that dough to be active when you get to the shaping phase. So I did that one direction, I'm doing it the other way. Dough feels nice and strong, beautiful, you know. We're gonna now give this 2 to 4 hours and then we'll come back to shape.
Who's that?
That's my son, he's coming by to say hi. What's funny to me is that we spent so much time here when you were like,
Exactly, I was like, hands on the table.
He was like, I can help shape bread.
Exactly.
I'm making this croissant sourdough loaf.
Sweet. Oh, this one's good.
You remember that?
This one's really good. All right, so we're shaping it up?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get you set up and then you're gonna do it.
Okay, so I'm doing it?
Yeah. But you just I'll put some flour down for you. We'll get you all set up. We'll make it nice.
Of course.
This dough is wicked sticky though.
Okay, so you guys are gonna see me like go in, no experience, guinea pig.
You can't say no experience because it's just been a while. That's the only thing, right?
I mean, yeah, it's been a while, yeah. Alrighty, well, so we're just like folding
the
middle.
The way this is gonna work, so what you're gonna do, you're gonna fold sort of along that line. So if you have like an imaginary triangle coming down, basically you're gonna fold this side in and then this side in, because what we want after these folds is to have this sort of like triangular somewhat aspect to it.
Okay.
Because then what we'll do is we'll roll down from the top and you'll end up with this nice sort of uniform situation. So always touching the dry side, right? Don't touch the sticky side.
Nope.
Touch the dry side. So reaching underneath and pulling over. Yeah, right there. And then I'll just like, yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. Hands as paddles, just sort of pressing.
Got it.
And then let's see if it's sticky at all. So because that one was a little bit short, you're gonna have to kind of come over and knead it.
I see.
So literally like probably this side, you're kind of aiming for like right there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. See how it's still floating?
Yeah.
That's what we want. And now what we'll do is we'll start at the top and then you're just gonna sort of in small bites, you're just gonna sort of stretch and press just a little bit and you're gonna come down.
Alrighty.
So it's in small bites, sort of stretching up and then pressing down. Yeah, good. With a little pressure, it'll adhere. Yep, exactly. And then go back and come up. Yep, and you can stretch upward just a little bit if you want. Like you can lift it up, literally. There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So it looks just a little bit loose and that's okay. Let me see if I can I'm gonna give that a press and then I'm gonna come here, get it off the bench, give it just a little bit of tension. And then boom.
There he does it.
Done, right? And then I'm just making sure it feels like a little bit sticky. I'm gonna give a little bit more flour, make sure your bannetons are well floured. And then what you're gonna do is pick it up and invert it into there so that you got seam side up.
So grab it like that.
Yep, and then invert it. Voila.
Boom.
And if you get there and you feel like, you know what, it's still a little bit loose, what you can do is just come down and you can just sort of bring it together. You know what I'm saying? Like you can just give it a little bit of a stitch for tension. And just pinch them.
There we go.
And then we'll get those covered and we'll get them into the fridge. This guy leaves for music school next week. That's it. Gosh. Goodbye, Arlo. Have a great senior year. All right, so I've got this loaf that was in the fridge overnight and it's ready to go. I'll get this cover off it and we can just look at it for a second. But it looks nice. You know, you're not gonna see like a doubling in the basket or anything like that, but you will be able to feel it and just feel how it has a slight marshmallowy quality, which is what we want. With lots of time and experience, you're gonna be sort of better able to judge the level of proof, like is it ready for the oven or not? And that will vary by each type of dough. There is no one rule that says this loaf is perfectly proofed and ready to bake. It will change from challah to brioche to baguettes to sourdough loaves, and especially sourdough loaves that have inclusions. It's different, and so how do you get better at it? You bake, you bake, you bake, you keep baking. One thing that I like to do with this loaf is to make a little bit of like a tray because it will lose some butter during the bake. And if you're gonna bake like I am directly on a stone, it can cause a little bit of a mess. And to avoid that, I like to use some real good quality parchment paper underneath the loaf. So I just sort of fold up the sides of some parchment And it actually makes it really handy because then what I'm gonna do is I'll actually put this little baking tray that I made out of my good parchment right over the top of the loaf. And then I'll just invert onto it. Whoop. You can see these beautiful buttery spots sort of showing through on this loaf. Okay, nice sharp razor blade. I'm using a curved aspect to it because I like how that sort of gets underneath that dough skin just a little bit and helps to release the loaf. Whoop, like that, done. You can see the beautiful structure of this loaf. It's well proofed, it's happy. So I have my oven already set up. It's preheated. I have some cast iron pans in the bottom that I have preheated with my baking stone. I'm gonna slide this directly onto the stone. I'll add my water to the pans for steam. I'll close it and I will bake the loaf. Let's go. Does it not smell like crazy good in here? Does it not? It does, right? I mean, come on. Like just squeezing that thing, like listen to this. It has that crispy, crunchy, like flaky quality that we get from a good croissant, but then you've got the sourdough. It's like everything pumped, pumped, pumped. Really, really good. We'll let this cool, we'll come back and taste it. Man, I don't know if I have enough patience for waiting, but we're gonna do our best here. Loaves are out. You know, in the process of filming our videos, we always make several rounds of everything just because that's the nature of the business. So I've got a few extra loaves here. I've got some that are really cool. In fact, you know, they've had plenty of time and now they're slicing really well. And I mean, they're beautiful. I love, love, love the lacy quality of this crumb. When you bite the crust, it's got these crust layers like you would have with a croissant. It's got all the buttery flavor, but it's also got all of that sourdough sort of hit, that punchy brightness that's so good. It's a super compelling loaf to eat, plain like this or toasted or made into French toast. So many great uses for this sourdough croissant bread. Thanks for joining us as always. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. We've got more great content coming. This is Martin and Tucker in the studio saying thanks for joining us. This is our sourdough croissant bread.